Record transcript going. All right, here we go. Three, two, one. Welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today I got a real treat for you. His name is Jerry Hatfield. Jerry, say what's up to our listeners.
Well, I'm just anxious to have a little chat on the podcast here today.
Sure thing. So, Jerry, for the listeners out there, Jerry and I, we've got a brief but in-depth history. So, Jerry and I, we met at the Wet Show 2 years ago, or 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 Wets ago. And we hit it off. You know, Jerry's my guy, and he's good looking. He does what he says. He's got that energy that you just want to learn something from. Ask him some questions. So, we had a good time at Wet, and then we've kept in contact. Then I saw you again at Wet. And you're wearing a different shirt this time. You had a different logo on it. So tell our listeners what you're doing today, and then we'll kind of dive into your past.
All righty. Well, my name is Jerry Hatfield. I'm with Hatfield Edge, LLC. We're a training and consulting company. Just recently retired from Sewer Equipment Company at the end of last year and started our own training and consulting company. We're reaching out. My wife is helping me with the business. My lovely wife Barb, been with her 47 plus years. She put up with me for that long. Well, she's a keeper, but I am the owner and the trainer of the company, and Barb takes care of the finance and accounting and things of that nature as a business manager. And I got into the industry about 14 and a half years ago. And in 2013, actually, I was working for Sewer Equipment Company as their customer service manager. Did that for several years, but very early on, I realized that there was definitely a big need for technician training. That factory trained mechanic school, because Sewer Equipment had just launched a new piece of equipment. There was a lot of struggles. Tech support was just having a lot of problems with helping people get things fixed and all that good stuff. So decided to establish that training facility. So
Love it, Jerry. Well, let's dive in a little, because you're already stepping in half my questions, man. You're stepping on my toes already.
Sorry. I get that a lot.
let's do technician training. I mean, let's go right for it. So a manufacturer has to train, whether it's operators, salesmen, end users, who else? Just any and everybody's going to be around that piece of equipment, or has to intelligently speak on it or use it, has to train it. So when a manufacturer puts together a training platform program, what is usually the end goal? Is it to make sure that product is best presented to the general public for more sales or more client engagement, or is it built for a salesman to be able to sell it better, to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing when they're making the purchasing decision? Kind of go into as much as you can. Of course, I don't need you to air out all the ins and outs, but just go into why a manufacturer would create a training program for their specific product.
Well, I guess it kind of depends on, the easiest way is who's doing what. A factory, or a manufacturer would probably go in and put together training programs. Say, for instance, you mentioned salesmen. They may work with their dealer network or their whatever representatives they have out in the field selling the equipment for them, and they may want to do training with those sales reps in order to make them much more effective in their sales, much more productive, and there's a lot more sales in the end goal there. Internally, we did in-house training so that new hires, when they came in, they went down to the floor, the production floor, so that they were ready to build the equipment in the best possible means that they could. I always jokingly said, we're about 2 generations away from the shade tree mechanics, and it's amazing what young folks don't know about
Come on now, go
Just
easy.
just some of the things, that I ran into in the new hire orientations. But the thing that I really focused on mostly, I mean, we did do a lot of sales training for our dealers when I worked at Sewer Equipment. We did do an awful lot of training for those sales reps to help them be much more effective when they're in the field. Where I really focused, I would say probably the bulk of my attention was on training mechanics on how to work on the equipment that we built. And so the proverbial factory trained mechanic schools were what I developed. I say, I found out, like I mentioned earlier, very early on in my career with Sewer Equipment, when we had launched a new piece of equipment, been out there in the field a little bit. I don't care how well you design it. I don't care how well you engineer it and all those kind of things. A new piece of equipment is going to have bugs, and you just have to wait until sometimes, those bugs show up right away, or sometimes it takes a while of them being in the field and operating till the bugs start showing up. And so we were really trying to help our dealer mechanics, our customer mechanics, be able to get up to speed and be able to get their machines fixed much faster. Spend a lot less time at diagnostic time, a lot more time bending a wrench and getting the things back into the field. So Hatfield Edge really is going to be focusing on that. There's people that, either couldn't or wouldn't send their folks to Dixon, we're in the middle of corn and bean fields, out in, 2 hours west of Chicago. So it's not like we're a hotbed of activity. But at the same time, there were reasons and valid reasons for those folks to not be able to come to Dixon. And what Barb and I are going to do, we're taking, if the Muhammad won't go to the mountain's going to go to Muhammad in this particular case. And so we're going to go out and actually do on-site training for those folks that, are interested in that. So that's
the train the trainer concept, I guess, or dichotomy of, like the person that's training, how do they get trained? Who do they get their information from? I think even selfishly, like I always like people who just left the industry to come and work in the industry, whether it's on the sales side or on the private side, because they're like, you still have the, I would say, scar tissue, or you still have the the trauma of working for a large organization, and you've had things in your brain, you've had ideas, you've had anecdotes that you couldn't really put into play because you might have had your hands tied. And not saying this is just one company, this is every entity, whether working for a city or any company. So Hatfield Edge, when you got your hat on, you're out in the field, you're in the backwoods of Alabama. What's usually what you're going to draw from to make sure you get across to that next generation, or even to those new operators who are going to be using and working on that truck, just so they know that you care about them and you're not just that normal trainer that comes out and says, here's what you're supposed to do. If you can't do it, you're dumb. I'm out of here.
Well, I one thing I always started off most of the classes when I was holding the tech classes over at when I worked for Sewer Equipment, and this would be the case no matter what subject matter I'm training on. I can hand somebody a training manual, and that gives you the how and the what. But if you don't teach the why, but you just wasted everybody's time, because I can hand it to them, but they don't. You still have to give them to understand, why was it designed this way? Why was it engineered this way? Why was it put together this way? And so then, especially for a mechanic, because there's so many memes out there in the world about what mechanics think of engineers and things like that, and it's I just won't go into it.
Both sides are true.
Both sides. But anyway, but what's interesting about it is that sometimes they engineer to build things quickly. That doesn't necessarily lend itself to the mechanic that fixes it after the fact. And I'm not dissing the engineers or anything like that out there, but at the same time, they have their job to do. The mechanic has their job to do, and sometimes nary the twain shall meet. And you know, so unfortunately, you're going to have, you know, oh God, I hate those mechanics. You know, all they do is rag about how he designs. Oh, I hate those engineers. I can't believe they designed it this way, kind of thing. And you know, I was in the middle of that, and so it's like, gang, here's the reason why. Here's the reason why it was put together this way. This is how you fix it. And here's the reason why. And the key thing, and you just touched on it just a bit. The one thing that, you know, that I'm going to always, you know, talk about throughout my entire training, whatever I'm doing, especially with mechanics, or if I'm talking to operators or stuff like that, is I'm always going to be hitting on the safety factor. You know, when I was at the WED show, I did a presentation on how mechanics need to stay safe when they're working on combination machines. I was, you know, targeting the combination machines, but it would mean the same thing for high pressure water jetter, hydro excavator, or anything like that, you know. So I'm always wrapping safety in and among all the things I do, because I mean, the mechanics are working with some, you know, just like the operators, high levels of vacuum, high levels of water pressure, things of that nature, high levels of hydraulic pressure, those kind of things. I mean, you know, I'm always hitting it, you know, the safety piece of the puzzle along with the why. So, you know, I thoroughly enjoy it when I do that.
Yeah.
So
Both you and I are, I would say, one time removed from the bias of, you know, working for a manufacturer or a brand. Like I sold vacuum, which is probably a 4-letter word from in your neck of the woods. And we never, you know, we never really, you know, wanted to entertain conversations around, you know, the sewer equipment product. But now that we're both kind of on our own, you know, we're I hate to say it, kind of like in the middle. Like you said, we're in between the end users. We want them to do well, and of course, we want our manufacturers to do, whoever we're doing the training on the product, to do well also. How do you navigate the, you know, not having that bias anymore of only buy this kind of truck or only use this equipment because this is what I'm used to doing, and now, like, if somebody calls you for a Vacon or a Vactor or a Gatvax, and I mean, come on, a pump is a pump is a pump. They all get them from the same places. Like, how do you keep your bias, you know, tucked away, just to make sure that, again, the operator makes it home safe, and that you know, that owner can, you know, have a efficient piece of equipment?
I'm not who's stealing who's thunder here now. Well, here,
Come on now.
and you bring up a valid point. I mean, you know, sometimes people would say, well, gee, you know, we got a lot of Vactors or Vacons or super products or whatever the case may be in our fleet. And, you know, I'd say, well, okay, if, you know, let's say a customer, municipality has, you know, this, you know, Aquatech, and then they've got a Vacon, and they've got a sewer equipment piece of equipment. And all three of them have a giant pump on, or General Pump, or Myers, or FMC, or whatever. It's like, it's the same pump, you know. So what I teach and, you know, like rebuilding a water pump, or, you know, diagnosing other issues that may be happening with the water pump, they can take that home, and it covers everybody's, you know, if it's a red pump, it's a black pump, you know, if it's got a brass head on it, bingo. It doesn't matter. It's going to be the same thing. Blowers. I mean, you know, the manufacturers, you know, the 4 primary blower manufacturers out there for your positive displacement blowers out there. Well, guess what? You know, working on, you know, the general sense of, you're working kind of with the same thing. Yeah, they're slightly different designs, but at the same time, when it gets right down to it, yeah, you know, a blower's a blower in this particular case. And, you know, I won't get into fans because I never worked around the fan systems and stuff like that. But again, hydrostats, valve bodies, electric over hydraulic systems, electric over air systems, whatever the case may be, you know, there's only so many different ways that they can work. You know, obviously some companies are more computer controlled or CAN bus systems. Others are not. So you have to deal with those vagaries, those differences and stuff of that nature. But in the end, there's an awful lot of crossing over between the different brands out there. So, in the end, maybe I might focus more attention on Sewer Equipment Company because that's what I know the most about.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm not going to presume what that's going to be like in the future for me. So,
sure. And to your point, like there's plenty of sewer equipment trucks out there. You guys did a really good job in the last 5-10 years, getting that market saturated with your products. So I know you'll have plenty of windshield time for you and your wife on the road. Oh, let's talk generational differences. When I first got in the industry, I apprenticed under a guy. He was a lot older than me, didn't look like me at all, but he knew a lot, and he was able to get a lot of that information, wisdom, and knowledge, even just a passion to me. What's usually Jerry's go-to way once you step onto into a corp yard or into a shop? You see a whole bunch of kids. When I say kids, they're 29, 28, 27, 31. Married for half a day, no kids, but they want to work. Like, what's because I'm sure they look at you and go, oh, what's this guy gonna tell me?
What's that old geezer gonna throw at me?
You start saying back in my day when Moses walked, or I was friends with Wyatt Earp. Like, how does Jerry get across to that younger generation? And then also, like, word of advice to to those in your generation, how can they make that pair stronger, that bond stronger, so we can all operate more efficiently and play nice in the sandbox?
Well, I think probably the primary thing is to not necessarily look at them in the age difference or experience difference, because I could have, 3 guys walk into a classroom and into one of the training sessions that have been, what I always refer to as bending a wrench, being a mechanic for 30 years. And I've got 5 guys walk into the classroom that just came out of their local community college or UTI or WyoTech. Yeah, they've gone for the mechanic training and things of that nature, but at the same time, they're so newly minted that they're just trying to get their head screwed on straight on coming out into the work world. You got to find some place in between those guys or gals when they're coming in for the training classes. And generally speaking, I'll use a lot of anecdotal, things that either I've experienced through, having been in the industry for the length of time that I am, been out there in the world, as long as I have been from an experience standpoint. Obviously, but I've been married for 47 years. Yeah, I'm a little older than you are, so you just have to live with that, man. But at the same time, I try to use humor because I find that oh my goodness, I have sat in on so many training sessions where guys are reading the presentation PowerPoint slides verbatim, and it's just like, give me a pillow, I'm ready to fall asleep kind of thing. And to keep everybody engaged, both the lesser experienced person and the more experienced person, keeping them both engaged, sometimes that can be challenging for a trainer. But at the same time, it's what makes the job fun. And that's the other side of it too, is what I would advise anybody in like my age category or somebody that's in the older categories to really take a look at what they're doing and maybe reevaluate. Am I a snoozer, or am I putting people to sleep, or am I engaging the people? And I've had to, it didn't happen right out of the chute when I came out. Actually, tell a little quick story. When I was in college, back when Lincoln was president and dirt was young, I wanted to be a veterinarian. Well, hey, that worked right up until I met this thing called organic chemistry. Ooh. And that was a train wreck for me. So I visited with my advisor, and he said, "Why don't you become an ag teacher?" And I said, "I will never, ever be a teacher. Period. End of story. Never going to happen." here I am, fast forward. What have I been doing, for the past 13 years? Yeah, I've been teaching. And
Yeah.
and I love it. I really do enjoy it. You have to have a passion for it. You got to want to be able to expand the minds regardless of what the experience is for the trainees that are coming into you, and that doesn't matter whether it's a mechanic, whether it's a salesman, whether it's a brand spanking new hire coming into the plant or anything like that. Just teaching people within the company or outside the company, here's what this machine does, kind of thing. I mean, I really just found it totally enjoyable, and that's probably what makes it more fun for me. And I figured out ways to make sure that every class is engaged. I'll even take the most curmudgeon-y guy that'll come in, fold his arms, you can't teach me squat.
Yeah.
And then there'll be those light bulb aha moments. And every trainer will tell you this. When that happens, that's just like makes the whole class worth it, because it's just like, boom, the lights come on, the clouds part, the heavens open, angels are singing, the guy got it.
Yeah.
You've taught him something. And then all of a sudden, boom, that opens up the class.
Yeah. Everybody else. Yep.
Everybody now becomes more engaged. And it's just, that's just kind of my story there. But
what, and kind of like to your point, I've seen a lot of those trainers. They're I would say they're the wisest, just happen to be the oldest. Maybe they can't turn a wrench or operate anymore, so they put them in the training side. What do you say to those CEOs who are looking for like an internal trainer, and why sometimes the wisest and eldest on the yard isn't the best trainer? And maybe sometimes they are. Like, what would you look for if you were a CEO to find your best internal trainer?
Well, again, it kind of depends a lot on what the subject matter is to be trained. Okay, so in my case, if I were looking for, say a technician trainer, mechanic trainer, I'm going to probably go to their tech support department or their engineering department, or both, and try to find the person who has not only talk through things on the phone to try to help a customer out, getting a machine back up and running or whatever the case may be, but maybe he's also spent some time bending a wrench themselves. I mean, I was a mechanic for years before I kind of got out of it, got more into the office environment for a lot of years and everything like that. And then when I came back into the customer service world, dealing with the tech support stuff, yeah, okay, well, going back into the training piece of it, after having learned all I could about the machine, combining everything that the tech support guys have run into, say at sewer equipment, well, that made it a lot easier developing. Here's what breaks. Here's what do we have to figure out. Why did it break? What that cause was. Now here's the various cures that we can fix that machine and that type of thing. So we developed those programs that way. However, I would probably be seeking, somebody kind of in that middle age category, in maybe those late 30s to late 40s, maybe early 50s, that have had a lot of time, and actually turning wrench and things of that nature, that are pretty sharp in what they do, or at least knowledgeable in what they do, and then can also convey that to other people. The main thing there is you don't have to come in being a teacher. If you know the subject matter, you can teach the subject matter. Yeah, you got to get over the butterflies and all that stuff initially. And yeah, you're gonna step on your toes a couple of times the first few outings, but you get into it and you start warming up to your subject. So somebody kind of in that middle road with the tech support background, engineering background's good too, because there's a whole lot of stuff there that the engineers bring to the table that would be helpful for that. I know some companies have engineers actually doing the training and that type of thing. So, but somebody that's had some experience, coming into it is it's a very viable reason to pull somebody like that in to replace. Like in my case, I was looking for somebody, to replace me, and train them up and so forth. And they were in that 40s and 50s category, for an age. So.
Sure, sure. Let's talk about skill sets real quick. I mean, over time, it sounds like with your past, you've picked up, I would say, tools and skills along the way. What would you say is the main skill set that allows a Jerry to go across the country, be an effective trainer, make the world a better place through just your knowledge and wisdom? What what skill set should somebody pick up to be, is I would say as solid as you are as a trainer?
Well, I mean, from the standpoint of, like what I plan on doing, when I travel to the customers, the municipalities, the dealerships, contractors, whoever that end user is going to wind up ultimately being. If I'm rolling in, one, I'm going to roll in with, those years of experience of training, the information that I developed as that trainer, because I built, all of the training material from the ground up, and had an awful lot of support from the other guys in the tech support department, working with the engineers, trying to keep up with this. Okay, we've just added this new thing to the truck, and here's how it could possibly break. We found out, 6 months to a year later, or something along that line. And I don't want to say that, that's just the common things, but I mean, you discover these things after the machines have been out in the field. But anyway, from a skill set thing, one, you have to have the passion to be able to do it. You have to be willing to put the grunt time in on it and everything like that. Get out there, be willing to get your hands dirty when the time comes, because you're going to wind up showing the guys, well, okay, I just talked about it in the classroom. Let's go out and look at what we just got done talking about. Let's go to the machine and see what we need to, talk through, and then ask questions. Just keep asking questions, because you want to make sure nobody has an unanswered question when you're done training. And I will, I'll kind of rag on a guy who just doesn't say anything. It's like, you got to have questions, Haas. Come on, give it to me here. Let me know. You came in here with at least one question that I needed to answer. What is it, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
But you got to know, like in the case of training mechanics, electrical, hydraulic, water system, vacuum systems, air compressor systems, if it's so equipped, and that kind of thing. You got to be able to talk through those things. You don't have to be. You need to be the subject matter expert so that you can convey what needs to be conveyed. I use a lot of examples of things that went wrong. Here's how we repaired them, that kind of thing, and then be able to share that with them. And then I also ask them, it's like, what have you run into? And talk through, okay, you ran into this situation, and they'll always bring some up,
Yeah.
Well, okay, Jerry, what would you think was the problem in this case? And we would talk through whatever the system was and whatever the issue was, and try to get them to their best level of knowledge out of that. And of course, if you're teaching them, you're teaching the rest of the class the exact same thing. So I really like having questions from each of the trainees that come into the classes and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I'm sure it helps, it helps break up the monotony of just a presentation. And also, as whether I'm teaching or speaking or training or whatever, it helps the flow, because now we can interact. It's not just one way anymore. So I know when you're up there as a trainer, when it's all quiet for half a day, you're like, gosh, come on, guys, give me something.
Well, then we'll go out and run laps around the manufacturing building or something like that. Gonna wake you up here somehow, guys.
Yeah.
Well, my secret always was I had candy dishes in front of them. It gave them something to do with their hands. If we were in the classroom, you see, and then of course some guys would be just in there tearing wrappers,
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It just gave them just a little bit of a jolt of sugar, keep them going.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah.
secret. Just a little bit of candy, keeps them
That's
going.
smart. And then it's getting their hands going, which they're used to doing all day. So it kind of puts them in that flow state, that at home state. I
Exactly.
need a story from Jerry. I need the story time right now. I need a story from Jerry. When something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it for the future. And this story is, and this isn't for, this could be something you learned while you're wrenching. This could be something you learned while you're at sewer. This could be something that you've learned in your time being on your own right now. But I want to hear something where somebody can go, huh? If Jerry went through that and he's still standing, I too can get through my adversity.
Well, probably, it's a little bit of a toughie because there are probably a million examples that I can't remember because I am an older guy. I was around, when dirt was young. But, the one thing that kind of trains you in life is when you make a lot of mistakes and you got to, okay, I put this together. Oh, crap. I was in a hurry. I have to take it off. I got to do something else. Oh, I can put it on now. Oh, crap. I forgot something. And you keep going back on it. Well, you will not make that mistake again in the future. So some of that skinning your nose, rubbing your knees up a little bit, getting down in the dirt all of a sudden is a good trainer for you. I could sit up there and go blah 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 blah, and that's what the student hears blah 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 blah. This is where probably the newer mechanics, they come out thinking they're invincible, and they find out relatively quickly that it's like well, what did I get myself into? I should have gone work at post office or something like that. But in the bigger scheme of things, it's trial and error is still one teacher out there that is effective. Now the problem with it is if you're trying to get machinery back into the field relatively quickly, you don't want to have a lot of trial and error going on out there. When Billy is trying to get the machine going and his boss is ragging on him, how long is this going to take you? Well, hopefully in a case like that, they've got some mentors in the group that can help them out. But again, that's what I'm going to go out there and try to help them do too. So, offering my services up in order to be able to help that, because I want Billy to learn so that the next time when he runs across, oh yeah, I remember skinning my knees on that one, so I'm not going to do that again, but as far as like me, man, I'm restoring an old truck right now. Well, it's 49 years old. Well, I bought one brand new 49 years ago. And, this happens to be just a second one that I had. Well, it's like a long time ago when I actually worked on my own truck, but that was back when you did everything. You changed the oil. You did your own tune-ups. You've set your own valves and stuff like that. That was back in the day when your owner's manual actually did have, here's how you set the valve flash and all that stuff in your engine. Not don't drink the battery acid, don't drink the antifreeze. And it's like, wow, we as a society really have gone south on that one. But anyway, but yeah, that's kind of, a lot of it is, some of it will be trial and error, and of course, the natural razzing that goes on between mechanics in a shop sometimes, it's like, oh, I don't want Bob to give me a hard time next time. I better learn, but then it's like, hey, Bob, can you help me next time? Again, mentoring is really important within the shops as well. And I hope, and I kind of pick on the guys that have been experienced for a while. It's like, okay, do you go and help any of the newer guys in your shop?
That's good.
If they don't, it's like, why aren't you?
Yeah.
I'll challenge them, because it's like, dude, you need to help this person come up to speed. One, so you retain them. You want a guy walking out the door, 2 months after they get there, and now you got to start all over training again. So retention is kind of important in that. You want to, once you get a mechanic in, you want to hang on to them.
I mean, I'm seeing that all across the country. They were short mechanics operators, but again, mechanics are one of those things that's every industry. Every industry. It's hard to find guys who can turn wrenches. I mean, not only competent, but just anybody in general. So
Hmm.
see that,
And
and I see this on the operations side that you bring somebody on, if they're not that competent right away and they get laughed at and people make fun of them, they're going to take off. They're going to be like,
hmm
screw this. Why don't I just go work at Chipotle or collect a check from the government and just, just not.
hmm yeah. Well, and you want them to be, we're always looking for making sure that they're
Yeah.
good members of society, and
Yeah.
it's our generation. I mean, I feel compelled to get out there and help the next generations get better at what they do, so they hopefully they ramp up and get better more rapidly. I want them to get them there faster than just
Yeah.
flailing along and trying to trying to
Yeah.
just skin their knees and skin their nose and all that stuff. I mean, you got to give them a break some point in time so that they can at least go out there and be somewhat effective, and for the bosses and supervisors and all that stuff, the co-workers and that type of thing, so they don't get a lot of rations of crap from
Yeah.
their co-workers and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that kid doesn't know anything. Well, yeah, help the kid out, will you?
Yeah.
Help bring the kid along. I mean, I've been mentored many times over the course of the years in a number of different industries, and that's the only reason why I was successful in any of those industries, is that there was somebody there willing to take me under their wing. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
so
So
anyway.
over time, how does Jerry continue to level up? Like, how do you get better? You could easily just roll into all these cities or agencies or private companies, contractors, dealers, and say, I know everything. Just hit me with your questions and just stand and deliver. But what keeps you continuing to learn? Like, what keeps you making sure that your sword is still sharp year after year after year?
Well, I pray a lot. I have to, I start my days out that way. Just it's like, help me get through this one. Help me impart that knowledge to somebody else. But it is interesting. I mean, naturally, like a lot of other people, I'll trade publications. I'm reading, keeping up with things that are going on in the trade. And LinkedIn, another good source. Other trainers that I'm friends with and acquaintances with in the industry. Those kind of things are really, really helpful. Yeah, I use those, but what's really challenging now for me that I'm not in with sewer equipment, well, that makes a little bit more of a challenge, that if something new is happening today or a new problem cropped up, is being able to keep fresh on that information. And so I need to stay in touch with the company and their repair facilities and things like that, just to make sure that I'm aware and I don't get blindsided when I get out there. Well, hey, we came across this new problem, and everything's like, ooh, haven't heard that. I don't want to be flailing along myself when I'm in the training. I want to make sure that at least I've heard about it and maybe I can tell what's going on and how things are going. So you have to keep keep that information flowing. And fortunately, I got a great working relationship with the team over at Sewer Equipment Yet, and the rental facility, Rock Rental, which is Sewer's rental arm and everything. Work with those guys on a regular basis, and it's just, you really have to work very, very hard to keep all the material up to date. And there's a new generation coming out. It's like, okay, how far off is it from the last generation? What's new and improved, so to speak, on the new
Yeah.
one that I need to know about? So I mean, that's a challenge. But again, you keep in touch with those companies, and when I get out there, if I do start working with like other brands and things of that nature, well, there's always that possibility. I mean, I'm gonna have a lot of work just focusing on the sewer equipment side of things, because we do have a lot of customers. We do have a lot of, dealers and things like that, a lot of contractors out there in the world that have asked for the service. So I might be busier than I really want to be. I am semi-retired after all, but at the same time, just trying to always maintain a fresh look at it. So
What let's talk misconceptions. What do you say? Because I used to sell Vectors, and I don't know if I'd be comfortable if there was a third party trainer out there training somebody on a piece of equipment that I sold to an agency or to a contractor. What do you say to those salesmen out there, even dealers, where they're like, "Hey, we want our salesmen to do all the training. We don't want Jerry Hatfield in our backyard doing the training." What do you say to them?
Well, I'm not necessarily going to charge headlong into that fire, because Mama didn't raise any dummies, But and I respect that because having worked for a manufacturer, and been on the internal side for as many years as I was with the company, I totally understand that. And would I go out and actively look for those types of accounts? I mean, there is a lane that I'm going to probably stay mostly in. That's not to say that I get on site with somebody and they say, well, we've had this problem over here with this truck, and hey, let's go take a look at it. I mean, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater on that one. I want to make sure that, I can help the customer out in the end, because that was the reason why I came in there to begin with, was to help the customer, whoever that end user is, and help them out. Again, I'll probably focus heavily on staying in the sewer equipment lane. 5 years from now, that could be, this could look totally different, and that type of thing. So,
Sure.
but hopefully that won't get back to sewer equipment.
No, that makes total sense. Do with again sewer equipment is a huge footprint of a piece of equipment out there. You're working with the collections crew. They have cameras in their crew sometimes, locators, other nozzles, which is a whole nother subject matter that one would be an expert in. Does Jerry see himself getting into some of those other lanes on the collection side, or is it mainly just sticking with the heavy equipment wheels?
Well, when I ran the university over at sewer equipment, traditionally speaking, I tried to stay in the lanes that we knew. So, and kind of jumping ahead here a little bit, like a Rusty Nazat, who's very knowledgeable in nozzles and so forth, or say the guys from the individual nozzle companies, I might have them come in and host a class, like, here, you want to come in and you want to learn everything there is to know about Stone Age nozzles or ends or IBG or whichever brand that we're in touch with. Collections, cammering, prepping for SIP lining. I hosted NASCO a couple of times a year. I'd have one of the NASCO folks come in and actually do it on site at Sewer Equipment Company in Dixon, Illinois, just because it was a location that we could bring in guys from the immediate region and things like that. And we would just host it, let NASCO, in this case, Jerry Weimer, do all the training. And Jerry was awesome. Rusty's awesome. What he does. He and I have been friends for a long time and that kind of thing. So I have another guy, Tom Latteray. He didn't come in from the industry, but we brought him in to train the salesmen. Yeah. And by contracting outside firms, I wasn't the smartest guy in the room, so I hired the guys that were the smartest guys in the room.
Love it.
To help them out. And in a case like this, what would, kind of the ideal scenario would be is that if I don't know it, I'm going to find somebody that does. And okay, so let's say I'm out at, I'm training at a customer site. Well, somebody asked me a question that honestly I can't answer. I might plop my phone down, turn it on speaker, call up tech support or the engineers that I know and say, hey guys, we ran into this, got a question here. Sorry, on this particular one, I'm dumb as a bag of hammers. I need help. And, and I would walk them through. Again, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I don't want those questions left unanswered before before I leave, and turn these guys loose on the world, so.
No, yeah, no, I appreciate that. You're not the guy that, I've seen plenty of trainers and they say, oh, I could train on this. It means I could train on that and that and this and that and this and that. And, if you're not going to be that effective at it, I'd say, just like you said, sub it out, outsource it. You will be loved more if you brought them to the well versus you just threw half a cup of water,
Well, I mean, there needs to be a certain amount of humility associated with it.
Hey, come on, humility with trainers in our industry? Come on.
Well, hard to believe, right?
Yeah, right.
No, I'm kidding. I love a lot of the trainers that are in the industry, but in reality, I'm not going to buffalo somebody and blow smoke and sunshine up their pants and try to make something up. I'm not going to do that, because if I don't understand it, or it's this, man, you had to hit the one weak spot in my knowledge. Well, I'm not going to sit there and, like I say, blow sunshine at them. I'm going to make sure that somehow, some way, I'm going to get them an answer. It might not necessarily be right at that moment, but hey, you got my business card, call me back in 2 days. I'll have an answer for you, kind of thing, and so that's always been my approach. I mean, I used to drag tech support guys or engineers in if I could not get that answer. I don't have that benefit now because now I'm outside the walls, but at the same time, I still have those resources out there, and I would call on them in a heartbeat if it was something that I couldn't answer,
Yeah.
But I knew, I'll always know who to go get the answer from, and I'm more than willing to do that. So.
Sure. Who would you say would be an ideal customer or client? Tell us, the problem that they're probably having right now and why they should reach out to Hatfield Edge.
Well, to tell you the truth, that's when it comes to training mechanics and everything, again, going back to the you can't teach me anything, to a guy that's kind of a wide open bucket to fill, because they haven't been in the industry very long, or they haven't done that type of work before. I'll take all comers. I'll take everybody that comes into the class. And I can't even really classify them as ideal customers, because I want to be able to do anyone that comes in the class, as far as spend the time with them and get the toughies to help out the younger folks. Because sometimes it's interesting, if I can get an interaction going on between a more experienced guy that knows what he's doing, doesn't, I gotta rein him in if all of a sudden they go off for the rails. But sometimes the interaction between the trainees can be just as effective, and I'm willing to let that go if as long as, like I say, as long as they stay on track and don't go crazy on me or something like that. But I don't know if I would label anybody as sort of an ideal customer, because I'm willing to manage any group of trainees out there. So
Sure.
bring them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll get through them, no matter what I'm satisfied by it always. So
yeah, you're in business for yourself, which is a little bit different than being formally employed. What's going to be the beat for Jerry? You're going to be hitting up trade shows, conferences. How can people help you grow your business out?
Well, a couple of things that have really been beneficial for me is some of the people that I mentioned before have been great mentors for me. A Rusty Nazad, I've got like I said, friends with him for a number of years when I got into the industry. And when he learned that I was going to do this, well, one, he was very excited, because he was always asked, well, do you do mechanic training? And Rusty'd say, no, I do operator and safety training. Well, when when I let him know that I was going to do this, he said, oh my God, I've been sitting on a 3-legged stool with one leg missing all these years. you're my third leg, Jerry. Thank God you're here, kind of thing. And Rusty has been very instrumental in helping us kind of get the ball rolling with the business, which has been super beneficial. Love him, love his wife, Kim. Their daughter Rachel's awesome. They're just a great family in the business. And another trainer mentioned Tom Ladder-Ray. He was very instrumental. I kind of helped bring him into the industry from out there just doing kind of general sales training. And he was now he's in the industry. He would come to the wet show. He would come just on his own to training events that I might be doing or that the group might be doing, because he wanted to learn more about the industry. And there'll probably be some things, that he and I will work together on. I have to give a shout out to some of the tech support guys that I worked with, and I'm going to name two guys. Pete O'Rourke, who I hired at Sewer Equipment Company, to be, like the guy. He's forgotten more about hydraulics and electronic controls than anybody I know knows, and Sean Hudson, another guy, came out of the military, served in the Marines. Unfortunately, got injured in Iraq, but an amazing mechanic, so knowledgeable about systems that he could train anybody. He'd be both of those guys. He'll complain that he's getting too long in the tooth to get out there and start training like this. But like a guy like Sean, I owe a lot to them, because they really helped keep, like I was saying, the training information that I was taking in and, imbibing on the classes. They really were super helpful in helping develop a lot of the training materials that I worked with. So big shout out to them. I've got to give John Wickman, the CEO of Sewer Equipment Company, a shout out there. I mean, he took a chance on me in 2011 to hire me on, shady character that I am. But, but at the same time, I went to him in 2013, said, John, we've got to do something, to try to help these mechanics get better at what they do, a little bit of selfishness, because I was trying to get the warranty costs cut down, but, because it's spending less time on the diagnostic side. If I'm paying the bill for, the warranty, and this guy solves the problem in 15 minutes and gets working on the machine, and this guy over here takes 30 minutes, and then I got these two guys over here, one took 4 hours, and another took 8 hours, and it's like, well, wait a minute. What took so long? And like, well, I don't understand your systems. And then, within 4 to 8 hours, you could have rebuilt the truck, So I'm sorry, I'm being facetious, but obviously, which one of those warranty bills did I want to pay from a labor standpoint? Again, we kind of go back to it. If it came down to rebuilding the water pump, probably all four of those guys would probably be able to build the water pump in roughly the same amount of hours of time. It's getting to the point that they know that they needed to rebuild the water pump was where that disparity could come into place. Yeah. And so, I just said, John, we've got to do something. And John says, go for it, grab the brass ring and run it. And it took a long time to develop the systems and everything and the training stuff, but I thank him for it, and, and helping us get things done so that I could use the training material when I go out into the field. They're looking for the benefit of, me helping them too, because not everybody's going to come to Dixon. So
no, I've been saying this for years. I've been screaming it from the mountaintops. Why doesn't every city, every agency, every manufacturer have their own university? Like, every single how-to should be documented somewhere, because the customers or the end users will like you more if you give them that information. Like, who wants to buy something off of Amazon and there's no ecosystem of how to operate it, how to maintain it, how to fix it, how to serve? If there's nothing out there like that, I'm less likely to buy it. I want to see plenty of other creators or people using it and operating it, so I can know that, I'm not alone in this if something goes wrong. So I appreciate you for, starting that initiative and taking it. I appreciate your CEO for just having the foresight of saying, yes, Jerry, this is what we need. Go ahead and create it, because a lot of CEOs, they don't operate that way. All right. So one of the most important questions, well, it's probably the second most important question that you're going to get on this podcast. 47 years of marriage. Tell us how you did it.
I listened a lot, said yes a lot. No, I'm kidding. My wife doesn't deserve that kind of an answer. She's definitely the better half of the two of us. I will willingly and gladly admit that. I have an amazing wife. Barb has just been the love of my life. From the time we started dating, technically 50 years ago, before I got out of college, and then we waited till I was done with college to get married. But coming up not too many months on 48 years. And so it's been a run. And she's looking forward to this business and kind of going out, seeing the U.S. and everything like that, I drove flatbed semi a long time ago. There's only 4 states I haven't seen, and I couldn't drive to Hawaii. So, but but anyway, but really, she's an amazing gal, strong Christian woman, and I love her to death. And she gave me 2 beautiful daughters. I'm a girl dad, so
Yeah. Well, I thank you for the answer. If Jerry can do it, we all can do it. I'm about 5-6 years in, so I'll be calling you 40 years from now.
Congratulations. You beat the odds already.
That's right. Thank you. All right. Most important question. Let's say I'm coming to town, and you'll let me know wherever this is. Coming to town, I text you ahead of time. I say, Jerry, where can I go to get the best burger in town? Where are you going to send me?
Ooh. Well, let's see. In a city as small as Dixon, we're about 16,000 people. We have an amazing per capita amount of great places to eat. And I know so many of the owners of these places, so I'm going to get in real big trouble here. River City Ale House or Dunk's Bar and Grill. I'll give you those 2. But if you go to any other place, they're still going to have an awesome burger. So, but I would go those 2 guys or those 2 places.
River City Ale House. And this is Dixon, Wisconsin, right?
Dixon, Illinois.
Oh, Illinois. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. But you're in Wisconsin now, or no?
Well, I'm going to be moving to Wisconsin here next month. So coming up on that. But
gotcha. So 10 years from now, I ask you for the best burger in your part of Wisconsin.
Assuming I'm alive, considering how old I am.
Stop it, Jerry. Well, Jerry, thanks for hopping on the podcast. I mean, I love how you're the same person on the Zoom call as you are in real life. I'm sure most people, once they get to know you, will realize how solid of a guy you are and how much of a staple in the industry you are. I'm looking forward to seeing Jerry's travels and you and your wife hitting the road and just making the world a better place through training people on sewer trucks. So appreciate you coming on. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Jerry, any final words before we get out of here?
Well, one, thank you for bringing me on. I appreciate that. And, helping get the word out about our company. And we are super, super, excited about this new chapter in our life and all that good stuff. We're moving closer to our daughters. We're moving closer to our grandkids. Life doesn't get any better than that. My grandson just can't wait for us to go fishing. And, so in between fishing with our grandkids and traveling to go out and train mechanics, life's going to be pretty good for me. Plus, I got the old truck I got to work on too. So,
hey, what truck we got? What is it?
It's a 1977 Ford F-150 four-wheel drive.
Okay.
Lift kit, big engine. The whole idea.
Those are hot. It's probably worth $100,000 right now. Those are a hot item.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to buy it for $100,000, I'd sell it.
Yeah, I'm your Huckleberry for sure.
Yeah, but no, seriously, thank you. And you're a great guy too. From the time I met you the first time around, Haas, you're the genuine deal, man. So congratulations on your business and good luck with it as well.
Thank you. All right. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in.